Hi, Guy. It's Coach Jan Buse from Try Coaching Finland. Today we're gonna talk about training with power, training with power meters. So, for many of you, it could be a bit complicated, all these numbers, new terms, but no worries. We're gonna try to keep it simple and that you understand the basics. Okay, that's the point of the video, that you get the basics on how to get started with training with power. So it's pretty simple. When you will get this kind of cool gizmo, like this stage power meter. This is a power meter. Now these kind of gizmo are getting quite much cheaper. It used to be like super pricey, expensive device, but now it's really getting accessible, and especially the guy from Stages, they really did really good work to bring this to the much more mainstream, accessible to the public. You see, this one is a left crank based power meter. The power meter itself is including in the crank there. In the left crank, this little pod, this super tiny, super light and kind of narrow aeropod, that's where you get the power value from. So let's get this started, and let's start with what is power. As simply as that. What is power? So power, to really keep it easy and simple, it's the force time the velocity, the speed. So in bicycle, basically, it's how strong you're gonna push on the pedal and how fast you're gonna spin the cranksets. So when you think like that, it's kind of simple. So there is two ways to increase the power. You push harder or you spin faster. So then your training will have to work on this both. You can spin faster or increase your power, and they will reflect both in increase of speed. So yeah, when we say that, then it's the force time velocity. Then why using power, to for example, pace our training, pace our race, and why not just like the heart rate? So how many of you are familiar already with the heart rate pacing, and but I would say that heart rate have really a lot of limitations. So first limitation of heart rate versus power is that heart rate is not like a real-time value. Okay, it's the heart rate increase. It's more like a consequences for the effort, and so there is a delay, like compared to the moment you really push on the pedal, and where the increase of the heart rate will show on your heart rate monitor. So it makes it really tricky to pace for shorter interval. So that's one reason why a power meter is really like a stronger, more accurate way, let's say this way, more accurate way to pace your training, is that it's a real-time value. Okay, real-time value means that as soon as you push on it, you get right away the value showing in your monitor. So there's no delay as for the heart rate. So you can pace whatever smaller intervals from few seconds to many hours. I could compare that, training without. It's almost like, how did we manage to train without the power meter? I mean, let's compare that. You go to the gym. Okay, you go to the gym and you push some weight there. You go weight training, and training without power meter, it would be like you would push some weight training without knowing how many kilo you push. You know, you wouldn't do that. I mean, you wouldn't see how you progress. You would estimate, but you wouldn't see your progresses. So same goes with the bike. You go a certain speed, but you don't know how much you push for real on the pedal. So definitely, now that it's getting accessible, go for it. That's the best investment you can get out of your, the best benefit out of your money for the moment. Better than aero wheels or fancier frame. If you have one single investment to do on your bike for next season, go for a power meter. So let's go a bit more in the explanation how to get started with training with power. So we know what is what's the definition of power. So how to include that in your training. So you will need to set up your training zones, not anymore heart rate training zones, but power zones. So what tests should you do? So there is different schools, different ways how to do. Like you could get your heart like power zone in a lab, that's possible. So, but the cool thing with having your own power meter is like you have your own small lab at home. It's much less expensive than going in the lab regularly. Then you can do it on your own bike. Okay, not all labs allowed you to do that on your own bike. So meaning it will be specific to your position, to your bike, so it will be more accurate in that way. So it's kind of easy to set up. There is different kind of tests, and the classic one, the Coogan test, made by Dr. Andrew Coogan, it's the 20 minutes all-out test. Some of you maybe heard about this one. So to explain a bit the choice of the test I use for my athletes, probably let's explain what is behind that test. So the point of that test is not to get your maximum power, it's to know your FTP, the FTP. So what's the FTP? It's the functional threshold power. So the functional threshold power, it's your power output at your anaerobic threshold. So if you would do the test in the lab, they will give you your threshold. So the really cool thing in the method in the Coogan method is that instead of like having to have a fancy test lab, so the guys thought like, okay, the theory behind the threshold like power output should be that somebody can hold the threshold maximum for 60 minutes. Okay, so that's the theory. You can hold your maximum threshold pace for 60 minutes, an hour. So instead of testing that in the lab to get your threshold, then it took it all the way around. So meaning that if you know what's your maximum for 60 minutes, then we have a good estimation of what your threshold value will be. So that's a really simplistic way, but super efficient way to turn the problem and to get that FTP, our base number, to calculate your training zones. So 60 minutes, it's really long, So the test of Kogan is a 20-minute all out, in fact. So he estimates that if you do a 20 minutes alone, all out, and then you minus 5% in the power you find for the 20 minutes, then it will give you a fair estimation of your capacity for 60 minutes. So here is where a bit, I see a bit the limit of that method. And another method to calculate that threshold, that functional threshold power, is the Friel test protocol. So Friel use like a 30 minutes all out. So it's a bit closer from the like normal theoretical 61 hour all out. So we estimate that if you do that alone on your trainer, it's more or less the same value you will get if you will be doing 1 hour like all out in a competition. So my method, I kind of try to take the best of both worlds. I'm keeping the basic idea of the Kogan method. I keep the same warm-up, which is like 20 minutes easy. Then you follow with 1 minute high frequency, 1 minute rest. Then after you go like for 5 minutes easy, and then a 5 minute all out, okay, as fast as possible, to kind of open the pipes and get the ultimate like warm up to be ready to give your maximum. Then 10 minutes easy, and then instead of doing the 20 minutes, I would mix both methods, and I would prefer that my athletes go for, and that's what I advise you, to go for 30 minutes all out. So because it's a bit longer, a bit closer from 60 minutes, then the margin of error is like smaller, and that's what you want, okay? It's already like kind of a demanding effort, and you want it to be as like accurate as possible. All right, so 30 minutes, and what you're gonna get from that? So you record in your like monitor by computer device, and once you extract the file, you will use one program. There is different one, like really cool Training Peaks or Golden Cheetah. The one is a free desktop laptop version that is free. So from this, you will take that segment, that 30 minutes, all out, and we need almost the average, not the average power, but the NP power. So what's the NP power? It's the normalized power. Normalized power, it's kind of an average power that have been clean from the peaks and downs. It will be a much more smooth and neat data. It's the normalized power is a way to get a cleaner and smoother average. So this value is the one you're going to use for the base of the calculation of your FTP. This one, the 30 minutes test, you take the NP power and we're going to have your FTP. All right. So then with this one, you will have certain percentages of your FTP that's going to divide in zone system, exactly how you would do with your heart rate system. Same kind of zone: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 if you use only 5, or 5A, 5B if you use like a wider scales of zones. All right, so pretty simple anyway. When you think about it, it's like 30-minute all-out test, okay? My advice when you do the test, if you want to compare test between each other, if you want to see your progression, because you want to see if your training is effective, you want to see if you have a good coach or not, okay? So you want to see if there is progression in the time. With only heart rate, you won't see the progression. With power, you can see the progression. You can see if you produce more power, all right? So what is super important is that you keep the same protocol. You do the test the same way each time. Because otherwise, you won't be able to compare the values, okay? So I give you an example. If you want to compare one test to the other, do it with the same device, okay? If you do the test with the watt bike one day and then with your trainer the other day, there is too big margin of error. Already, the most sophisticated device have like a plus, let's say plus minus 2% of margin of error. So if you would already like compare two same model, same brand, same model, it can be up to 4% difference. So that can jump you from one zone to the other, okay? So if it's two totally different power meters, if it's not a crank-based power meter, if it's a rear hub, a power tap or watt bike, you will get so different values that you won't be able to compare the test. Same goes with your bike. If it's an ergometer, if you do it in a lab or on a spinning bike, which have a power meter, you won't get the same exact position than maybe you got on your own bike with your bike fit. So then you won't be able to produce the same exact power output. Same as well, the way you do the test. What is the test for? It's to pace your training and pace as well your race. You can pace your race with this value. So you want to be as close as what is going to be on race day. All right? So if you're going to aim, for example, for a fast Ironman, quite flat, you're going to be mostly on the aero bar. So do the test this way. Perform the test the same way as it's going to be mostly for your race. Because if you're going to be out of the saddle and pushing, you're going to produce more power and it's not going to be accurate. So always do it as much close as possible as what is going to be on race day. If you do it indoor, your zone will be valid only for indoor training. Why? Because your bike, when it's on the trainer or when you bike outside, there is inertia when you bike outside. So you're going to be able to push yourself like much more, all right? So you're going to have greater value outdoor. As well, the sensors, all the strength gauges inside, they are a bit tricked. As well, they don't work the same way if the bike is moving or not. So the value are not going to be exactly the same. So if you want using your parameter for indoor use, do the test indoor. And if you want to have outdoor zones, do the test outdoor. Simple, isn't it? Then I really recommend you that you read like a couple of books that's going to help you a bit to understand better and get the best out of your parameter. So there is like two main books that I would recommend. Firstly, there is the Kugan, the official Kugan book, which is training with a power meter, if I'm correct. Training and racing with a power meter. Here is the cover. If you see well, like this maybe. Yeah, there is no much light. All right. This one. And then the second I would recommend you to read, because I like that my athletes are well educated, you know, more they understand about what's behind the training, more my job is easy and more we can push the cooperation further. Second is the Friel book about training with power, and the name is the Power Meter Handbook from Joe Friel. So he's taking quite much of the Kugan method, of course, but I think this one is maybe even more accessible. Like the way it's explained is even easier to understand, to my opinion. So I highly recommend this one as well. And remember, get yourself a power meter, all right? It's Christmas soon, so that's probably the best gift you can give, like to yourself, or you can wish for the next season. And on the next video, we will see a bit other terms that comes with power. Okay, some of those like strange letters that you see maybe in training plans, but you don't know exactly what they are. Like what is EF, what is TSS, all these strange terms. We're gonna see that in the next video. So okay guys, now you get a bit like the picture of why, of what is power and why to train with power meter. So what are you waiting for?